Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 341, playing a false nine in a 7v7. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello, and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Edgar Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with the team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Well, it's that time of the year again. It's the time of the year where soccer is going in schools, academy, and it's allergy season. So my voice is a little bit rusty, but that's okay. On with the show. I really hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I'm super excited to get my VO2. And I really enjoyed my conversation with Jono. So hope you enjoyed that. And speaking of VO, VO is also our sponsor today. So we thank them for their amazing sponsorship of the show. And through our VO, we are going to be talking about this past weekend's games. And last week I also spoke a little bit about consistency. And what was funny was that we had, so let's go in order as I always do. We started with our 2013s, and this was the first time since probably around May and June that we had our full 2013 team. We were missing our goalkeeper who played for our 2012, played up a year, and he was gone for the whole summer. We also had one of our 2014s who is one of the players that also played up 2 years with the 2012s. So he was gone for the past month as well. And just kind of bringing both of those players in allowed us to bring the player who was kind of subbing in as a goalkeeper out and put him in center midfield. It just changed the game completely. And that consistency that I've been looking for, the ability to reset, the ability to take players on 1v1, everything was there with that 2013 team. Yes, there were still times where they made wrong decisions and stuff like that, but they're still under 9, so that's stuff that I expect. But probably our best performance of the year against a bigger, stronger team. So that's really what I look for when we play against bigger, stronger teams. How do we play? Do we shy away from tackles? Do we shy away from 1v1s? Do we trust our teammates, which is something that I'm going to be talking a lot about today. So really great game. I think we won that 5-1 or something like that. Then our 2010 played, and again, everyone is back now. So it's a completely different team than it was even a couple of weeks ago. And they played really well. We reset the ball. Our 1v1s were great. The 2010 team is a team that, unlike the 2013s and 2012s, they haven't had that foundation of 1v1s and rondos. It's stuff that a lot of them just picked up last year when they started playing for us. So that gladiatorness, as I call it, which is the ability to keep possession most of the game in the opponent's half, reset the ball properly, switch the ball, 1v1s, it happens, but it doesn't happen as often as it does with the younger ages. Regardless, they probably played one of their best games in a long time. Won that game 3-0, I think it was, something like that. 3-1 or something like that, I don't know. And then our last game was our 2012. And our 2012 team, we've brought in 2 new players. So it was, they're still getting acclimated to everything. One of them came in and still just really trying to learn and understand the idea of support and then losing your defender. So we played that player on the wing, and it was a decent game. Our goalkeeper made 3 mistakes that all ended up in goals, and we ended up losing 3-2. But the consistency of resetting the ball wasn't there. I think after the mistakes that the goalkeeper made, players just didn't trust our goalkeeper enough. And that's a theme that I've been seeing a lot. And I'll talk about that after I talk about yesterday's game. So yesterday's game, we had a Monday game. It was last night. Started at 7:30, ended at 9, which is very late, especially when the game is downtown, and I live very, very north of downtown. So I ended up getting home at I think it was like 10, something like that. So long, long drive, but it's okay. I don't mind the drive. The game was probably the most intense game of the season. It was in a stadium, turf field. Uh, it was night, which is this is our first ever night game, so the lights on the players, and there were lots of people watching, and the intensity was just as high as I've ever seen within the 2010 age group. We've had other intense games, especially with the 2012. The 2012s, with that indoor season, they were very famous for getting into intense games simply because other teams would want to push us around because we were so small, but we would push right back. So that intensity really, really leveled the game up. This was a team that we played a week ago and lost, I think, 3-0. And again, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. And those games 2 weeks ago, completely different team. Today, we were short to start with a couple of weeks ago, and this week, just to show you the difference, we had two lineups. So I would rotate the players every 7 minutes, and every single player would take off another player. So we had two essentially different teams coming on. So that's just the difference of 2 weeks, right? So super intense game. And my favorite thing about this game, which I haven't really seen in a very, very long time, is usually when the game is so intense, it causes friction between coaches. And it definitely does with me. And I'm guilty of that in the past. But me and the other coach, we were able to really appreciate that, the intensity of the game and how good it was, and kind of spoke to each other throughout the game. He's a really nice guy. They ended up getting a corner and scoring off a corner. We can't score off corners because I like to go short. I like to do that because I don't want them to score on a counterattack. Got a couple of lucky bounces and ball went in and we lost 1-0. But really great game. And there were a couple of things that I noticed throughout the game and really figured out why this team doesn't reset the ball. And our 2012s have been, and our 2013s didn't, and now have started to. And it's really an issue of trust, which brings me to the big question. You know, should we really develop players? The teams that we play against, to be honest, don't really develop players. We, throughout last night's game, never kicked the ball out of bounds. I don't want my players to kick the ball out of bounds. I want us to keep possession. So if you have a player coming from behind and you're the defender, you should be resetting to the goalkeeper, whereas other teams just kick it out. The last 15 minutes, we were pressing so hard, and we had the ball in the opponent's half for 15, 20 minutes and just trying to score a goal. And every single time they got it, they kicked it out. And it's an issue of trust for me because as a coach, do you trust your players to take players on in your half, in your third, which we had one of our small defenders do 3 times, right? And a lot of coaches kind of go, no. You know, don't kick it up, right? So it's the idea of trust, but it's more than that. If you can develop a good foundation of 1v1 and rondos within your players, it creates trust amongst themselves. What I've noticed, especially with our goalkeepers, is that there's a lack of trust between our defenders and our goalkeepers. What you see with Manchester City is that they trust their goalies. So they pass the ball back, and they know that their goalie is going to take care of the ball. And there are times when I feel like our defenders look back. They understand the decision to play a support pass, right? Or, a reset. And they look, and then they kind of go, I don't trust it. And then they try and do a move to get out, right? So for me, that's such a big issue. And we have players that don't pass to other players because they still don't trust certain players because of their lack of 1v1 ability. So it's a pretty big issue for me, I think, that players don't trust each other yet. We have that at certain teams. We have, our 2013, now that everybody is back, seems like that trust was really there, especially with our goalkeeper back. Our 2012s, it really depends. It depends on who's playing defense at that moment and their relationship with the goalkeeper. It depends on who's playing center mid and wingers and stuff like that. I think our 2011 team, they are going to be able to trust each other really well because of that experience of playing up with the 2010s. So when we go into that indoor season, I really expect that. The 2010s now have a 2011 goalkeeper, and I think that's kind of the big issue of why they don't trust, because the players are a year younger, even though he made some fantastic saves. But it's a really interesting issue to think about. How much do the players trust the other players on their teams? And there's different types of trust, right? There's defensive trust. Do you trust that when you lose the ball, your team is going to help you, right? And help you get out of that bad situation that you put your team in? Are they going to fight for you? And I know that every single one of our players trusts each other, that they know if they make a mistake, someone else is also going to help them rectify that situation. So from a defensive point of view, there's absolute trust. Then there is trust. Do you trust a player when you pass them the ball? And that's when it gets a little bit dicey with our academy teams. We have certain players that do, certain players that don't. And that's something that we have to fix and I have to work on. And we have to understand that it's okay to make mistakes. And it's hard. It's really, really hard because when you get into these really, really intense games, how do you put your trust in someone that in the rondos you see is messing around, is you see not making good passes, right? So that's kind of difficult. And that's going to be the points that I'm going to make in rondos now. Can you trust each other? And I'm going to point out players that are messing around, and I'm going to say, in the games, players aren't going to trust you if you're messing around here in these rondos. And I think that's hopefully going to help make the rondos more serious, more intense. And that's just really what we want. We want to create game intensity throughout the whole practice. And it's very easy to do that in 1v1s. And that save, by the way, I'm going to try and post that once I get it up on my VO. But the game was yesterday, so it takes some time to upload. But just a fantastic save. And he's done it a couple of times, the goalkeeper. So he kept us in the game at the beginning when the other team was just pressing. And had the ball in our half, shooting lots of shots, and just did absolutely amazing. So that's that's kind of the part of the weekend that I really started to notice and realize why we're not resetting the ball. And to that point, I've kind of done something that I said I would never do, and that is make the decision for the players. And that is to tell them to reset. Usually I let them play. And a lot of this weekend on Saturday, if you watch our games, I sat back and watched most of it. But I'm really going to start saying reset. And the reason I'm going to start saying reset is because I know in their minds, they know they should be resetting the ball. It's just the fact that they don't trust. They don't have that 100% trust. So if I can, kind of say, it's okay, reset the ball. If there's a mistake, that's okay. But what I know will happen eventually is there won't be mistakes. There won't be as many mistakes, and we'll get less and less mistakes, especially with the younger teams. The younger teams are very, very good at it. So I think with just me reminding reset in certain points, I think that's going to help. So even though I don't like to make decisions for our players, and I just don't, but resetting is something that really takes us to a different level. The games that we reset are the games that we dominate, and that's just kind of how it is. So, that's the weekend. Let's talk about the main idea of kind of the show today, and that is the false nine in a 7v7. It happened by accident. It wasn't something that I've ever thought of and kind of went, I got to get this into my 7v7 structure. And first of all, let's talk about what is a false nine. Well, a nine is the center forward. So if you look back at the history of soccer, there's a book on the positioning of soccer. It's called, I think, the Soccer Pyramid. I read that a long time ago. And a long, long time ago, essentially, the formation was one goalkeeper, 2, 3, and then 5. And if you go through the numbers with the goalie being 1, and I think it's left to right, then you end up with the center forward with the jersey number of 9. So that's how, if you hear a number 7, number 10, all these different numbers, a number 2, a number 3, and you hear the commentator talking about that, and those numbers have evolved kind of throughout the years and based on different formations and stuff like that. So when you hear about the number 9, it's the center forward. And the center forward traditionally plays high. They're the ones that creates that depth, right? So we talk about being wide and long. So they create that long shape. A false 9 would be a center forward who is doing the opposite of that. So instead of creating those long balls and creating that long shape, they're actually coming short. And there's a lot of reasons to do that, right? If you're playing a 4-3-3, which is where we want to end up, you already have your wingers creating that long space, the depth. So as a result of that, you can take the false 9, bring them back to receive the ball, and if the other team is playing with a 4-back or even a 3-back, and they keep their line straight, then they don't necessarily follow the number 9, which allows the number 9 to get the ball in the midfield sometimes, or in between where the forward would originally be and the midfield. So it creates lines and creates gaps, and that's really what Messi was known for, because when you think about Messi playing in that center forward role, you think about the defenders on the other team being really, really strong and sticking to him like glue, so he couldn't get the ball. So instead, he would come and leave the defenders. The defenders would stay there because you don't want defenders to leave, because that, if they do, that opens up a gap, which allows for players to run in behind, which is, I could go into a full episode about the false 9 and what would happen if they come in, and maybe I'll do that a little bit later. All right, but let's talk about how this 7v7 false 9 happens. So we play a 2-3-1. That one is the number 9. Okay, so that is our center forward, and they play there. Now, I'm trying to get my 2014s ready for indoor. They've never played a competitive game. They've never played 7v7, 5v5. They've played nothing. 3 of those players have, because they're playing on our under-9 team, which is our 2013 team. But we have we have 3 absolutely fantastic players who are 2015 and 2016. So they're a year younger and 2 years younger than the 2014. So they've never done any structure of 2-3-1. They don't know, they don't understand positions or anything like that. So I did my rondos, which they've been doing for 3-4 months now, so they understand the concept of support, advice for this foot, losing their defender. They understand all that. So now we're putting them in a 2-3-1. What I did was I did a 2-3-1, but it was 3v3 in the middle. Sorry, it was 4v4 plus 3. So the plus 3 are the neutral players, and that was the 2 defenders and the goalkeeper. And then we had a 4v4 with the 3 midfielders and the forward being on one team, and the 3 midfielders and the other forward being on the other team. So let's say we have the blue team against the yellow team. The blue team and the yellow team are midfielders and forwards. The defenders and the goalie are all neutral players. So I put our 2015 player as a forward. And first of all, let's talk about my 2014 team. And I guess 2014 and 2016 to be more accurate. This is the team that I am so insanely excited about. This team has played with 2013s, 2012s in practice, and they do not shy away. And as I said before, I personally feel, and I guess I'm biased, just like, you're biased towards your kids, but I think we have some of the best 2013s and 12s in the league. So to have these players at 2014, 15, and 16 already compete with that is insane to me. These players hate to lose, and they do not shy away from tackles. They fight harder than I've ever seen any players fight. So their soccer IQ from a 1v1 point of view, because that's all they've been doing. They haven't been doing anything other than 1v1s, is at a very, very high level for their age. Most of them can do Maradonas, scissors, all these moves, Cruyff's turns, but can't even tie their shoes yet, which I think is one of the funniest things ever, that our players can do all these crazy moves, yet when they need someone to tie their shoes, they come to us. So I think that's pretty funny. But anyway, so I put those three on a team, the 2015s and 16 players, and they did okay when we were starting that. Now, the number 9 struggled with his positioning to the point where, without even realizing it, he would come in to a false 9 position. And I would tell him, go up, get in your positions. And he didn't really understand. So I just kind of let it play and watched it and realized what was happening at that moment where he was dropping back. And let's talk about what happens, because most teams in 7v7 play a 2-3-1. I haven't seen teams play anything else. Not that at least I can recall. And usually the teams that we play against, their defense just stay back. They don't get involved. They stay back and pick up dandelions or flowers or, the grass, or look at, I don't know, planes in the sky. So they just, if someone comes at them, then they'll defend and then they'll kick it up. And that's really what we encounter. So essentially, our defenders and our midfielders are playing against 4 players, along with our goalkeeper, sorry. So we now have 6v4. But if we get a false 9, then now we have a 7v4. And the way it works is this. Let's think about that 2-3-1 position. And let's say the goalkeeper has the ball, and our 2 defenders, left and right. We have a center mid, and then 2 wingers. The ball goes to our left side defense. And the left side now becomes the strong side, because the strong side is the side with the ball. The weak side is the side without the ball. So the ball goes to the left side defender. Then we have our winger, who starts high, come into a supporting position. And if the defensive team winger follows them, then they lose their defender and go back, because they've now created space. And they can receive that ball. If the defender doesn't come, then they receive the ball in support. Our center midfielder shifts into the strong side half space. And if you don't know the different types of half spaces, we start at wide space, then we go half space, center space, half space, and wide space. And there's diagrams online that you can see. So if the player on the center mid goes into the half space, strong side, ball is now on the strong side. What was happening with the false 9, he was dropping back into the weak side half space. So now we've created a midfield 4 playing against a midfield 3, which really helped the ball being switched from side to side, because a lot of the time at the younger ages, it's really hard to make that pass from strong side half space to weak side wide space, right? It's a very, very long distance for the younger players. So the fact that he was dropping by just to get involved created a 4v3. And what happens at that point, too, is now instead of having a target player when we're dribbling towards the other team, we're actually able to beat our players 1v1 because of the intense 1v1 training that these players have done. And when they're attacking the two defenders, they're running with speed, which is really hard to defend against when a player's running with speed, especially at the younger ages. So usually what would happen in most 7v7s, including ours, and with our forward, the ball would be passed to the forward. The forward would receive the ball with their back turned to the defense, or they would turn as they receive the ball, and they don't have a lot of speed. So they either have to do a Maradona, Cruyff turn, a step over, whatever it is to get away from pressure, which makes it a lot easier for the defenders. So it was a really interesting dynamic. And the team with the player that was playing the false nine, we would play up to 10 passes. They would get the 10 passes very easily because we were able to keep the ball, because we were just playing 7 against 3, right? So it makes such a big difference, that extra player coming in. And when we switch the ball from side to side, usually if you switch the ball from, let's say the ball goes strong side winger to strong side defender switches to goalie switches to the weak side, which is the right side defender has to kind of wait for the midfielder to find space. But with that false nine, we already have an advantage of a 3v, I would say 1 at that point, because the other team's already shifted. So it's super simple to just connect the passes with the false nine, who then can either turn and go or can receive the ball, pass it down the wing. So that ability to switch the ball using our goalkeeper and having that false nine there creates an even bigger advantage on the weak side than it does on the strong side. And when you're going 3v1, it's just easy as pie for these players because of their 1v1 experience, their Rondo experience, their 1v1 plus 1, which they've done with the give and goes. So it creates a completely different element for these players. And all through an accident that I didn't tell the players to do. It was just the fact that he wanted to be involved in the game so much. And that's really what I'm seeing with these players. They want the ball so much that their positioning is off, but it's off because they're looking for spaces to receive the ball. They just want it. So that's kind of the whole false nine in a 7v7 idea, but I'm just really excited about it. Now, are we going to win games? Probably not. These players are super small compared to what I know we're going to be playing against. I think, honestly, the biggest challenge for this team is going to be attitude. They're not used to losing at all. They hate losing. All of them hate losing. Even our goalkeeper. There was a point where I was demonstrating. We were doing, I don't know, it might have been like a 2v2 or something like that. And I told the goalie, I said, okay, let this go through the net. And he said, no. And he picked it up and threw it away. He doesn't want the ball to go in his net. Like, he's not okay with that. So the biggest issue for me, I think, with the 2014 team that I'm going to be looking for in the winter is going to be supporting each other. Is going to be that when things get tough, we got to play as a team. We got to work together, and we got to be kind to each other, because I really think the 1v1, the soccer part of the game, is going to be super easy for them. So that's really what I'm worried about. And I'm excited to see what these players do. I mean, playing 2 years up, playing 1 year up, that's 3 of 7 players. That's almost half the team. And then we have 3 other players that have already played in a league. So it's going to be really exciting. I'm really excited for that team. I'm really excited for the 2011 team. These are 2 teams that are a new age group for us. The 2011s played up a year. So it's just going to be exciting to see how these things happen and what happens. You know, is it going to go the way that I think? Is it not going to go the way that I think? And just continuing 2010s. Now we're going to be all alone. So we're taking some really good players out of that 2011 team because they're 2010 team because they're 2011s, and our 2012s. They're also going to now be by themselves pretty much. We've had players come up and play with them as well. So we're playing in a different league than we did in the summer. Like I said, this summer league was supposed to be, and I think is, one of the top leagues in Ontario. The TSA, which is the Toronto Soccer Association, is known for that, to have some of the best teams in Ontario. It's our league, and then the York District have the best. And usually when you look at players from Team Canada, they're a lot of the time from Ontario. So to be in those top leagues, of course, we're tier 2 right now, which is what I wanted, but we're still being challenged. So it was a really great season, and I'm just really excited. With the 2014s, for the next month, because we're getting pretty close to indoor, I'm going to be having them scrimmage some of our 2013s and just really try and get them into that 7v7 shape and really see where we're at. And every single week, I'm going to challenge them a little bit more. Maybe bring in a 2012 player to play in the game. Maybe bring in a 2011 player, one of our big, strong players, and just kind of see how they do and play players in different positions and see what they like, what they don't like. And we've never really had that luxury. For us, it's kind of been, let's put a team in, see what happens. We haven't really had the opportunity to get ready and put teams against other teams and kind of play that. So that's what we're doing Wednesday if the weather stays. So that's going to be exciting. And I'm just really excited for what's happening. We have this weekend is going to be our last weekend of games. We have our 2012s and our 2010s. So it's going to be a really great, I think, way to end the season. Our 2013s ended the season, like I said, really, really well. And it's exciting to have everyone back. And then we'll see how the 2012s and the 2010s end it on this weekend. Well, the good thing about recording on Tuesday and kind of getting ready for Wednesday, which is when we're training, and then releasing it on Thursday, is that I can reflect Thursday morning about what I thought was going to happen. So yesterday, Wednesday, we did a scrimmage between the 2014s and 2013s, just so I could kind of see where we're at. And a lot of interesting things kind of showed themselves in that game. So first of all, it was all about the 2014. So I took some of the 2013 better players and just didn't put them in there. I didn't think that was really fair. They're a lot bigger and stronger. But the 2014-16 team is what I'm going to call them, because it's 2014, 15, and 16 players. They're not very organized. They're not a very gladiator team from a moving the ball point of view, keeping possession, moving the ball side to side, understanding their positions. We're having a really hard time with something that's really interesting. Nobody wants to play defense. And if you think about why that is, it makes perfect sense, because for the past, some of them, couple of years, all they've been doing is 1v1s. So they've just been attacking. So they love that role of attacking players 1v1s, and they don't really get that when they're defenders. So nobody wants to play defense. And sorry, I mean, like in the 2-3-1, nobody wants to be that 2 back. When they lose the ball, they still obviously want to get it back and work towards that, but nobody wants to be my left and right defenders. My goalkeeper is probably one of the better goalkeepers that I've seen from the point of view of talking. He will yell and he will scream and he will tell players what to do, and I love that. So he's a very vocal goalkeeper. And to have that at 2014 is really great. He's also a really great shot stopper. So good there, but we really don't have defenders. So that's going to be interesting. Trying to get them into a formation is going to be really interesting. So there's a big challenge with them coming up for the indoor season. Now, 1v1s and the way they played yesterday against the 2013s was pretty good. They wouldn't shy away from tackles. They would take on players beat some of our big, strong 2013. So lots of exciting things, but that's a really big problem. The fact that they still don't want to play defense and that they don't understand their positioning. And we just kind of have a couple of weeks, 3 weeks actually, before indoor season starts. So I'm going to start working with them a lot more on shape and just kind of understanding their roles and things like that. So hopefully that'll help once the indoor season starts. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. I'm really excited to start our indoor. Indoor is always a really good season for us, and our training is in a really small futsal gym. So that's a really big change from what the players are used to in outdoor. And I love doing the 1v1s in that space. It's very crowded, and it's very good for our 1v1 development and their first touch. I always notice that when we go back outside, our first touch is a lot better, our passing is a lot better, just our ball movement in general, and our 1v1s is a lot better. So looking forward to that, and this weekend is the last weekend of games, so I will tell you how that goes on next week's show. But until then, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.